Seth Gilliam.
Here he is on Ocean City stage, everybody. Woo! All right, thanks for coming down today, Seth. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here.
So, well, thanks for inviting me.
Our pleasure. All right, just want to start off with some things about Seth's career before we open up the questions from everybody from the audience. So, Seth, I don't know if you could tell the audience how you got started. What made you interested in becoming an actor?
I used to do impressions when I was a kid for the family, gathered around. And I was a big cut up in class, and one day the English teacher invited me to check out the drama class because he thought it would be a good constructive way for me to use my energy. And that was in the 5th grade, and I got hooked.
Very good. So you're saying act up in class can lead to a successful career?
Yes, well, back in those days, yes, they didn't just like send you to another room and be somebody else's problem. They actually like tried to come up with constructive ways to work with small, budgets and overcrowded classes.
Okay. Very good. So after you got out of high school, what was your next step? Did you play college?
Well, those same drama teacher and English teacher, Mr. Feldman and Miss Hassett, prepared me to audition for the High School of Performing Arts, which I got into. And from there, my teachers helped to prepare me to go to SUNY Purchase, which is a theater training program, part of the State University of New York, which I could afford.
Yeah.
But it's also one of the top 5 acting programs in the country. So I was able to get some Pell Grants and a couple of scholarships and go to college. I was the first kid in my family to go to college. And I've been very fortunate in that I've had support and people looking out for me and guiding me and giving me guidance and love and belief from family members to teachers since I was in the 4th grade.
Great. So obviously the industry is a tough industry to get into. Getting your first big break, probably go through a lot of auditions, I assume, and a lot of agent meetings and coaches. So what was your first big break?
I was really, again, I was kind of lucky that I did this thing called a consortium, like a general audition that groups of schools would do for all of the casting agents and talent agents in New York. So my school was SUNY Purchase, Carnegie Mellon, NYU, and Boston University. And then the other group was Juilliard and some other like high-end schools. So out of that, I got an agent, and a week and a half after I graduated from college, I was starting rehearsals on Richard III at Shakespeare in the Park with Denzel Washington playing Richard III, and he had just won the Oscar for Glory. As a matter of fact, the Oscars were the night before our first rehearsal. And I was playing Prince Edward of Wales. It was the last show that Joseph Papp actually had a part of the casting of and watching the rehearsals before he got too sick and wound up passing away. So he actually handpicked me to play the Prince of Wales. Because at that point I think he said that I was prettier than Denzel. So.
That's a pretty good compliment at that point, right? So then I guess your first major was television. You started television before you got to movies, correct? I started in television while I was doing, the first year out of college was really a bus on fire. About 2 weeks into doing Richard III in the Park, the casting people for The Cosby Show came to see me, Kersey Warner casting, and called me into audition for a role in The Cosby Show. So I was actually doing The Cosby Show right in the last 2 weeks of the run of Richard III. So I was going to do the Cosby Show in the daytime and then going to the theater at night. And at that point, the Cosby Show was still the #1 show on TV. It was just about to be overtaken by the Simpsons. So, you know, I figured that I'd hit like, you know, the black entertainer's power trifecta. You know, I had the Oscar winner that I was doing the play with, and then I had the #1 guy on, you know, sitcom television that I was doing a TV show with. Back in those days, we didn't know that he was a sick, filthy degenerate. We thought he was like everybody's, you know, loving father.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah.
Okay, then, so as your career goes on, I guess your first big movie was Courage Under Fire, correct?
Courage Under Fire, yes.
Back with Denzel Washington.
Once again with Denzel Washington, who had nothing to do with me being cast in the movie. And Meg Ryan and Lou Diamond Phillips and my good boy Matt Damon. It was my second movie because I'd done a small independent, and his second movie. And another good friend of ours, Tim Guinea, who was also in it, who you'll see in tons of movies.
Right, so when you're on the set of the first big movie, you walk up, your eyes and big, like, wow, look at all this, or what's it like the first time you walk on a set of a major motion picture?
It was very intimidating. It was a war movie, and we were supposed to be out in, I guess, the Iraqi desert. And for a good 200 yards, they'd had these tanks that were like half or a quarter buried in the sand, like, you know, remnants of a battle. And these are actual tanks that they took time to like angle and dig out and dig up and cover and everything else, and, you know, shot down helicopters. But it was like looking over 2 football fields worth of, you know, these small little army soldier things you get when you're a kid. It was like, it was all life-size, you know. And the director actually yelled action 3 times before I started moving. Because I was so terrified of making a mistake. I was like, I'm going to make sure that the camera comes my way before I move. He's like, action, 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 action. Seth, there are 4 cameras, Seth, we can see you, Seth. And I'm like, there's like a camera right here, you know, and I'm just waiting because they're not going to blow the tape because of me. Blow the tape because of me.
But you can show you ads you take in the moment of the play.
Yeah.
So, but then I guess the following year we had your first big sci-fi picture, as con fans really enjoyed. You got to kill some bugs, right? In Starship Troopers.
Starship Troopers, which we had no idea would have the shelf life it's had. At that time, Paul Verhoeven was coming off of like the biggest flop in Hollywood history in Showgirls, which was a fantastic idea about fancy showgirls in Las Vegas.
The name kind of explains it, we think. But
So anyhow, that film cost $150 million to make, which prorated 21 years later would probably make it closer to like an Avatar $300 million movie.
Right.
It's more than made up its fair share of the cost, but it was a huge cost to a risky director, you know, who hadn't done sci-fi, but he was a brilliant director in the Netherlands,
right.
in Holland, did these Orson Welles type movies. So he was just really getting paid in Hollywood. But I actually auditioned for the role of Johnny Rico.
Okay.
He was supposed to be Brazilian, even though he was from Buenos Aires. But that was their thing. In the future, you can't really tell where anyone's from, you know. You've got like, you know, this really tall blonde girl who's from Puerto Rico, because we're all moving around and migrating. And the black people are actually live in Greenland and Iceland.
You bought into the concept.
Yeah, I bought into the concept, but then, you know, then they said they wanted me to play Sugar Watkins, who had 9 lines at that point. And I just wanted to do theater in New York, so I said, you know, well, tell the director why I need to not play Johnny Rico, but they want to give me like, you know, $75,000 to do 9 lines. 9 lines, like I'm Marlon Brando, Superman. You know what I mean? I got 3 minutes of screen time for $75,000. Tell Paul Verhoeven, call me up and tell me why I'm supposed to be in his movie. This dude called like 2 hours later, and he told me like the whole concept of his movie for like a 2.5-hour, 3-hour phone call. It was like amazing, amazing. And I was like, of course I'll do it. I did a movie, whatever, absolutely. And I said, I have an idea that, you know, because he's got so little screen time, but he's part of like, Ratchek's Roughnecks, he's got a history of war. If I could have like a huge scar that runs the length of my torso, And at some point, I'll find a way to, like, you know, show the audience. Don't speak about it, but it tells the story. And he's like, I love it, I love it. And Kevin Yeager, who created the Chucky doll, who was working on all the puppets on the movie, he designed this scar, this silly putty thing that cost $9,000 21 years ago. That I wore and was so nervous about destroying with my nervous sweat because of like a $9,000 city putty scar. But that's the kind of, like, you know, enthusiasm that Paul Verhoeven had for storytelling. He was like, sure, I'll tell this young kid who got no movie credits my entire concept for this film to get him to be in it. And yeah, if he's got an idea about a scar that tells a backstory, well, let's get this special effects department to work on it. Money's no object. And you know, now 21 years later, it's a cult phenomenon. And damn, Casper Van Dien it's like Dorian Gray, looks exactly the same. It's like a picture somewhere, very old.
Yeah, and also that movie, it seems like he did go with a lot of young, newer type actors, right? There was no...
He said...
Like, Patrick Harris kind of...
Yes, he said what he wanted to do was hire a bunch of unknown, beautiful and pretty actors from Hollywood and rip them to shreds.
Did it work?
I think it did. I think with the exception of Denise Richards, everyone comes out looking kind of bad. But somehow her flight suit was like black and kind of leathery and had a V-neck collar, and like, you know, Barbarella or something. You know, the rest of us are in these heavy gray things, you know.
Then you saved the world by jumping on a nuke for him, right?
I did.
That's how you ended
Blew up the nuke, took out the entire bug colony, saved the species.
Saved the species.
Not just the world.
I'm sorry.
Should have saved the species.
Right. I forgot. There's a bigger world. There's a bigger world than we are now.
Many species.
Okay, then probably the next thing that your career people know you for is on Oz, the show, correct? The TV show.
Yes, Oz was an HBO show about prison, an experimental prison that actually was the concept of Thomas Jefferson. He had the idea that if prisoners, instead of being locked away in cages, were observed 24 hours, that would go further towards changing their behavioral patterns than if they were locked away like animals and allowed to dwell on whatever got them there. That would just reinforce negativity and isolation and their most animal-like instincts, whereas the idea of being watched all the time puts you on your better behavior. And having reward systems for prisoners who were, you know, behaving better and having a better sense of community or whatever, where they would go and live in these special little pods and they would be able to have 3 meals a day that they could, you know, select and all that kind of stuff. It's really an interesting concept, so yeah, Oz. And I shaved my head like Taxi Driver, tried to kill the governor, went crazy.
They kept you active, that's for sure.
Yeah, threatened to rape guards with a baton and created some alternate universe land called Khufu, the land of Khufu. Yeah, it was good stuff.
Right. So, but then after Oz, it led you right into The Wire, correct?
Dude, you were like all over. You got my entire career there. I was like, what new thing's gonna say about The Walking Dead on the night that it's like, you know, the finale? I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, The Wire, which I think to this day, I still think is the best show in the history of television. When it comes to narrative storytelling on what is a tired old, genre, the cop show, you know. It like totally turned the cop show on its head. Made it some kind of documentary, behind the scenes type, traveling with the good guys and the bad guys at the same time. You know, I think it's a brilliant show.
Right. Now, did you like the show because you had a partner you were with, right?
Yes.
Is that kind of fun having one person you know a lot with? You guys had some of the funnier stuff in the show, correct?
I had met him like a year before at a party in New York, and we got along really well. He was from the Bronx. If you watch the show, you can tell he's from the Bronx. And I'm from Washington Heights, which is the northwesternmost tip of Manhattan before you get to the Bronx. So we had a lot of similar experiences growing up. So when we found out that we were playing partners, we decided to move in together because we both come to understand that in talking to police officers that they're closer than their spouses. You know, they can finish each other's sentences. They know what each other's favorite foods are, what their triggers are, you know, what concern everything else. So we wanted to be able to get close enough to have that kind of relationship, and we wound up, I think, pretty effectively doing it. We wound up living together for 2 seasons. Got 2 different apartments. We would have massive John Madden football sessions where it would wind up being the cops against the drug dealers from like 11 p.m. until 5 a.m. if you weren't working the next day. Like if people were working, they left at midnight. But it was wild. We had like Stringer Bell going up against McNulty. You know, and Dom is an English guy who doesn't know American football to begin with.
Yeah.
Dom was much less video games, but somehow had some bizarre pinball wizard type of, you know, Rain Man type of thing at the game, and he would be beating, excuse my language, he'd be beating the bottoms off of Stringer and all these trash talking. These dudes just talk trash like nobody's business.
Now, was it odd, like the next year of the show, you guys were kind of on opposite sides, right? You were with the police force, and he was kind of the private eye. And
yes, but they kind of were still looking out for each other.
Yeah.
You know, so we were still able to maintain, you know, the kind of connection that we had, and not kind of betray it on the screen at the end.
Yeah, interesting.
How many pages do you have?
I make sure I didn't miss anything. I didn't get too excited and skip over anything good. All right, well, that brings us probably to The Walking Dead, which probably most people here to talk about. So, obviously, you came on in season 5, correct? And how did you find out about that role? Did they approach you, or something you had to go through audition? Because obviously, coming to established show is a little different than starting out in the show.
I didn't watch the show. I'm not a big horror or gore person. Plus, I auditioned and had 3 callbacks for Morgan and didn't get the job. So I'm not watching the show. You don't want me? I'm not gonna watch it.
Yeah.
So I got a call to audition for a high school guidance counselor with one of the executive producers and no one else. Turned out to be Scott Gimple. Just he and I in the room, and he ran the recorder. And aside from a high school guidance counselor talking to the sister of a young boy who had told the guidance counselor he was having dark thoughts and he wanted to kill his classmates. And the guidance counselor had a hot date for the first time in like 2 years because he was divorced, emotionally stunted. So he blew the kid off, and the kid killed 6 people and then killed himself. And the sister comes to confront the guidance counselor. So it was basically kind of like it ran along the lines of Father Gabriel's deep secret, you know, his horror about he had an opportunity to do the right thing and he didn't, and people died because of it.
Right.
And then I had the one audition, and then the next day they called me and offered me the role.
Okay, so for a role like this, obviously most of your roles, you know, you have the script and things like that, but there actually was a comic book series out before you portrayed the actors. Did you do research that way, or did you read the comic book? Obviously, the character's a little different than the comic book. Did you?
Yes, I read the one comic where Father Gabriel is introduced. I think it's like Night of the Hunters. It's issue 61, I think, or 161, or something like that. I read that one, and once I saw that he had hair, I was like, well, I can't read this anymore. It's going to be really confusing for me. No, I read it, and there was a great conversation that Father Gabriel and Eugene had about the nature of faith and belief. And Josh McDermott and I, we kind of championed and petitioned Scott Gimple to get that scene in, and it was in one version of the second or third script I did. And then it was out. So at that point I thought, I'm not going to read any more of the comments.
Right.
Because I don't want to get attached to anything and then suggest it and then wind up that I'm not as much of a part of the creative process as I thought. I'm just an actor, hit your spot, say your line, look good.
Yeah. Right. I mean, was it tough? Because he seems like he's such a tortured soul. Was it tough getting into character for that when you read for it, or?
No, tortured souls. I've played a few damaged, Arrested Development characters, and I find them more interesting and more fun to play. I'm very sensitive. I'm great to have in an audience. I'm quick to laugh loud and quick to cry. So it helps playing demented people who are suffering and, you know, in conflict, because then I don't seem so crazy when I start weeping.
Yeah, understood. All right, we have a.
Thank you for laughing.
Yeah.
Kind of. This dude's like, oh.
I was going to open up to the fans now, so we have the mic. If people want to line up any questions for Seth, just Get a
Don't
line.
be shy, just
Get a
get
line, jump
behind
into the mic.
the microphone.
I'm being there.
Go ahead.
It's kind of a couple-part question, so what you can answer and what you can't. Great. First of all, I just want to thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you.
I'm a non-union, non-working actor, and I appreciate everything you do, and I love The Walking Dead. And I used to be on Lost, and when Lost ended, I didn't know what was going to happen until The Walking Dead came along. So thank you for staying here. Okay, so this is kind of religious related to the show. You know, Carol is a Catholic, and then she lost her rosary. And I do recall Negan picking it up and finding it and kind of not seeing it in the storyline since. Father Gabriel, I'm not sure what denomination.
It's supposed to be an Episcopalian.
Okay. I was wondering, will the rosary be making a comeback before tonight's finale? Will it affect Negan, and will Carol and Father Gabriel unite closer on faith discussions in this after turmoil that they're going through? Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you. I'm going to answer your question as vaguely as possible. Nothing is set up on the show that doesn't have a payoff. So props and such don't just disappear without having some relevance. Particularly if main characters during intense scenes touch or use those props, if that helps. As far as Carol and Father Gabriel getting together on some kind of spiritual thing, I think it seems that they might actually be moving in opposite directions in that regard. And she seems to be busy with some hairy dude who has a tiger. I think that's what was the third part of your question? I think that's a question that you're going to have to answer for yourself at the end of tonight and possibly in the first few episodes of next season. But know that it has not been forgotten and it does serve a purpose.
Next.
Oh, you skipped the kid.
Now you're going to make me feel good. So congratulations on your successes. With Father Gabriel, over the last few years, Father Gabriel's gone through more character transformation than probably any other character, multiple character transformations. So beyond what's on the script, how are you playing such a change in character over the last few seasons?
I think what I'm doing is a technique called looping that I got. An acting technique when you take something from your own life, replay it on a loop, and then try to tie your character, a trait or an aspect of your character into it to create the same loop. And so for me, it's that Father Gabriel has rediscovered his faith, but it's not in the way he had faith before, when he was dutifully praying and doing all the right things, but somehow not having the full connection to God that is supposed to come from that. And I think, in my mind, from what I've seen and read in the scripts and what he says about himself and what he says about other characters, which are parts of things that they teach you to look for in acting class, I think he's found his faith through a man, as opposed to directly to the higher power. So because of that, I think he feels doubly fortified that he's been led by God to this man who is showing him how to exist in this new world, and that he can have purpose, and that he can bring light and guidance and what have you. So because he's got it coming from two ways, he's just an open book. I'm open to whatever. What do you want me to do? You want me to set myself on fire like those monks in Tibet to show you? Fine. You want me to wash your feet? Fine. You want me to watch the baby? Whatever you need me to do. Build, a mortar, house or whatever. That he's just open for what the next message is going to be from this higher power.
That plays through. So my last quick question is, how would you have fared in the world of The Walking Dead?
Long dead, man. Long dead. I'd have gone out screaming though, with a whole lot of cursing. Yes, sir.
What's your character's viewpoint of Negan?
Just a guy, just another man, no more powerful, no stronger than anyone else. Comes with all the foibles and weaknesses. He's subject to the same kinds of mood swings and doubt as everybody else. So Father Gabriel has no fear of Negan whatsoever.
I have a couple questions.
Okay?
So how many people have died while on him in the ship?
Oh boy, man, I don't know. People die like once or twice a week. A lot of people. I would say at least 5 major characters. I know that Beth, Tyrese, Bob, who else has died since Father Gabriel's come around? Glenn, Abraham. Yeah. What are you trying to get at? Trying to say it. What's your second question, man?
In the show, is Negan's barbed wire baseball bat like fake or real?
He's got both 3 real ones and 3 rubber ones. He walks around with the real one for all of his dialogue and everything else. And when he goes to bash people, they use the rubber one.
Thank you.
Hi. My question is, if you had to pick one person from Team Zombie to survive an apocalypse with, who would you pick and why?
I'm confused with what Team
Like
Zombie is.
Rick or Daryl or Carol, or who do you think would have the
You call
best
them
chance?
Team Zombie? If I could pick one of those characters to survive with, I would go with Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you're going to answer this question, what's your next side? Will you need a box of tissues?
You will need a box of tissues. You might also want to warn the neighbors that you're going to get really loud. You're not hot with that hat on, man. I'm melting up here. I mean, it looks good on you, brother.
Thank you. So hi, I'm Hawk. I'm Night Hawk Films with Joe Del Beato over there at the Marvel DC panel. I'm inquiring about what would you say to a young actor, business person on the rise at 24? What would you say to yourself at 24?
The same thing that one of my most treasured acting teachers told me, and that is, if you believe it, they will believe it. People are choosing to turn on their TVs, they're choosing to go to the movie theaters, they're choosing to go to the live theaters. They want to suspend their disbelief, they want to see stories. And the more you believe in what it is you're saying and who it is you're playing, the more you strip your vanity from it and make it about what that person, how that person sees the world, what they have to say, how they register the information coming to them from the other characters on stage or in the scene. That's what it's all about. And if if you're interesting enough and you're human enough, then ultimately you'll get all the perks and rewards. But I think a lot of young kids think reward first before work. And they're committed to the image of themselves that they want the world to see. And being an actor is not about putting yourself before the character. The less you know about me, the easier it is to suspend your disbelief when you see me playing a mohawked, mentally unbalanced prisoner in a high security maximum prison. Seeing as how I weigh 175 pounds of mostly skin, after 2 years in prison, I probably look a little more ferocious. So, all those kinds of things. I can't think about how I look in relation to the character. I can only think about what the character is thinking. That's what I would tell them. If you believe it, they'll believe it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Howdy.
Hello, Michael.
How you doing, Seth?
Good, thanks.
I got a few questions for you, but gotta be careful, because if I don't like the answer, I'm gonna mute the mic right here.
Oh. You know I have theater training, right?
So you can
Don't really need a microphone, actually. Oh, the acoustics in this room are fantastic, even with all this glass.
You talked a little bit about how you were living with your fellow actors for The Wire to sort of gel together. And I read somewhere that when you were brought on to The Walking Dead, that you had opted to live alone to sort of get into the mindset of being in solitude for so much time.
Yes.
So while you were living alone, did you have any extreme or out of the ordinary experiences off on your own?
Yes.
Probably best kept with a short answer. Let's see. You spoke about looping, where you use a personal experience to get into character and relate to something that's happened. There was an episode, I believe it was Coda, where you found a Bible, or your character found a Bible and saw Bob's charred leg, and you broke down crying. How did you draw that emotion to be able to portray that from your character?
I made it a Bible that he had given one of his parishioners when she was very young, and then when he goes through it, comes across a little bookmarker in the Bible that I wrote a little note on, as if I were giving it to a 13-year-old girl who died as a 26-year-old undead zombie. So that was about the loss of innocence and a reminder that that he had an opportunity, most likely to save her the night, that people were banging on the church doors and she was just yet another one that he let die. So, yeah, that was...
So you were kind of recollecting from your character's perspective.
It's always from the character's perspective. You use your own personal things to relate to the character, but you have to think real thoughts as the character, or else they won't register as real thoughts. You'll look foggy, glassy-eyed, or like, quite frankly, like you're thinking of something else that's nowhere near as heavy as what you're actually supposed to be doing. You have to think real thoughts. Yeah, that's part of the fun of being an actor, you know. People who think other people's real thoughts usually have to enlist, you know, professionals to help unspool that.
Someone asked a question not too long ago about your character transitions. Through the series, as you've transitioned, your work has been amazing because you've come kind of through various phases. Like you burned your clerical collar, and then towards the end of the episode, it seemed like your character regretted that. And then in the scene in the car with Spencer, you seem to have a little bit of a tough guy attitude, where you kind of put him in his place in Father Gabriel's innocent way. So I don't know that I'm really leading up to a question on this. I'm really more just complimenting your work in the transition of your character. It's been awesome and very entertaining. I appreciate it.
Cool, thanks, man.
You got it.
I appreciate that.
All right, anybody else want to come up? A couple more. We have time for some more questions.
Okay, so my question is, what do you think about Maggie's connection to Father Gabriel, because she was previously religious, and do you think that their connection could change in any way?
I think it did the moment that Maggie decided not to throw Gabriel under the bus about the whole Deanna thing and offer him her hand in forgiveness. I think it changed at that point. I think if Maggie were still in Alexandria, they'd probably have a deeper relationship spiritually. But, you know, she's leading a whole other community.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you like how you let the kid go first?
Yeah, I saw you kind of stutter step. And she was like, no, I'm taking this.
So, why haven't you guys just rolled up on some Costco or BJ's the Sweet Life for like the next 3 years?
I don't know what the Sweet Life is.
Sweet Life.
The Sweet Life, what is that?
Just get into some Costco. You guys don't have to fend for food for like the next 3 years?
Oh, I think at this point, I mean, we're like close to, or just around the bend on 2 years into the apocalypse. Yeah, I think all those places are long cleared out. Yeah.
I always feel like around the next corner there's some Piggly Wiggly or gun store.
Yeah. Now, but like imagine, when people like start turning into something bizarre and fighting each other, how quickly those gun stores are going to be out.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah.
Anybody else? No more for the audience? You want more? Go ahead. That's why we're here.
I'm coming up like cold because I can't believe there's not an enormous line with 1,000 questions. I think we're all stupefied because there's a million questions we want to ask you. Personally, I'm kind of shocked that more women had not been abused in this aftermath. Kidnapped, held, how this camp of women are on their own and they're about to stand by and fight.
Well, the camp of women is on their own because after all of the men were killed off, they were being used basically as, servants and sex slaves.
Right, and I guess the point I was making is that we didn't see so much of it because of what was going on with the other perils, but when they go to fight, this fight, if for some reason the battle is not going in the direction that we want it to, would they mostly be put into like a prison camp type situation? Like, do you think the men would revolt and be like, all right, that's it, we've been too lenient with the women, and they got to
imagine the men probably killing off the strongest women who presented the most of the physical threat and using the younger and weaker ones for, their pleasures, at their leisures. These are dark and sundry thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I'm just hoping that they realize, like, Grateful Dead sings, the women are smarter and they need us around. Or, making life and respecting, and growing.
Well, I think
interestingly
enough, I think, the way Negan runs his Saviors camp, he frowns very much on violence towards women, sexual violence towards women.
Right.
He gets off on violence towards men. But he won't have it with, with women, and I think everybody, all the men under his command follow that lead, under literally threat of death. So I don't see some horrible kind of concubine situation happening from the Saviors, and I think Rick, being a former sheriff, and the Alexandrians seeming to be like Midwesterners in the 50s, I don't really see them suddenly turning to...
Well, because, it's everyone who has survived at this point is so tough that, like, I'm almost afraid that, like, the women will wipe out the men and just be like, look, we really don't necessarily
there's electricity in
need
Alexandria, and as long as the fridges are working, you've got some samples, you don't really need more than a couple of men.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to tonight. Thank you again.
How we got there, but okay, thank you.
All right, anybody else? Questions from the audience? No? Okay. Oh, we have one. There we go.
So if you were given any role that you could design your own characters or create your own show, what concept would it be and what kind of character would you portray?
It would probably be a serio dark comedy where I would play some kind of down on his luck, once bright and shining star, now fallen investigator of some kind, so that each episode could be a new story. And he would be loveless, because that just seems to complicate things. But I'd probably have more women in the cast than men, because that's the way the world is. And I would probably look to have, moments of humor right in the middle of something really kind of tragic, something kind of Chekhovian, or Shakespearean. we were laughing and crying at the same time. I think that would be really exciting to have something like that on network television. Aside from that, in movies or plays, I just want to play somebody different than the last character I played, which I've been really fortunate to be able to do.
All right, I think we have time. Anyone else? One more question, then we're about to wrap up the Q&A with Seth.
So if there was no threat of zombies, no threats of humans attacking you in this post-apocalyptic world, what would you do for fun?
Well, it sounds like the world that you're describing just has no rules or laws or structure.
Describe it any way you want.
Right? But it doesn't have the kind of danger that's present in The Walking Dead. So, I would probably go around slapping people. Right now I just feel the urge to slap people so often. It's like, how rude is that? I held the door for you, you just walk by, look at me like I work here. I don't work here. You know, stuff like that. Did you need to cut me off and slow down? Did you really need to cut me off and slow down? Why did you have to cut me off and slow down? I'd run people off the road to slap them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, very good. Just want to finish it up. One question. Anything happening tonight you want to talk about? Anything in a war or anything you want to finish it up on? Or a little preview?
I mean, after like Father Gabriel blows Daryl Dixon away with friendly fire, I'm really gruesome. Because he shoots him twice. Like the first one takes like his chin off, and it's like so stunned. Oh my God! It shoots again. Yeah. Right as Daryl looks like, did you just shoot me in the face? And then his head goes. No, man, there's nothing I want to say.
I took a shot.
Finale. It's the season finale, man.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thank you all for coming.